Welcome. Enjoy watching.
Rode without her.
Brad had hauled antique furniture halfway across Oklahoma, parked his rig near downtown Tulsa, and figured he'd earned himself one quiet night off. Then he saw her, Sarah, sitting under strings of fairy lights, selling beaded jewelry on a patchwork quilt. Her sundress caught the wind like a movie scene. She looked up, smiled shyly, and asked if he wanted to see something beautiful. They ate tacos from a food truck, shared a beer on the curb. She told him she lived kind of everywhere and used to make dream catchers with her grandma. Her laugh wasn't forced. Her eyes didn't flinch when they met his. So when she said, "You don't have to drive tonight," he didn't. The next morning, Brad woke up in the back of his truck, alone. His lot cut clean. His trailer? Empty. Every damn thing gone. All that was left was a folded paper by the driver's seat. Inside, a hand-drawn heart with a smirking face and one word in blue ink, "Thanks." He sat there for a long time, staring at that stupid heart. But Brad wasn't new to the road. He knew where people like Sarah drifted. He asked around, pawn shops, food trucks, that punk band parked by the river. 3 days later, he found her outside a flea market in Muskogee, laughing with a guy who looked just as duped. He took his stuff back. Quietly. Clean. No cops. Then he left her a note tucked in her coin jar. "Now you know how it feels." Sarah stared at the note like it had teeth. By the time she looked up, Brad was already walking away, boots crunching gravel, the sunrise cutting his silhouette in half. Her lips parted, but she didn't call out. She just stood there, suddenly small. He didn't expect guilt from her. Or regret. But she didn't chase him either. Brad loaded the last of his stolen goods into a borrowed trailer. Most of it was intact. A few antiques had been sold off, but he traded for them back. People liked talking to Brad, especially when he was calm. Especially when he said nothing about the cops. It wasn't revenge. Not really. He just couldn't let her win. Later, at a gas station off I-40, he opened the glove compartment. The paper was still there, the one with the heart. He stared at it, then crumpled it, tossed it in the trash. It didn't matter anymore. But as he turned back toward the highway, something buzzed inside him. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Something colder. Back in Muskogee, Sarah sat cross-legged on the sidewalk, her coin jar half full, the note resting next to her bracelets like it belonged there. She didn't cry, but she didn't smile at customers either. That night, she didn't pack up. Just stayed where she was, the paper curling slightly in the breeze. And when a man asked if her jewelry had a story, she said quietly, "Not anymore." 2 weeks passed. Brad figured that was the end of it. Just another story the road would keep quiet. But then he got a message from an old friend in Tulsa, Tanya, who ran a pawn shop near the bus station. "That girl's been asking about you. Said her name was Sarah. Said she owes you something." Brad read the text twice, then put his phone face down. He didn't reply. A few days later, parked outside a diner in Amarillo, he noticed a bracelet hanging from his driver's side mirror. Leather cord. Red bead. His initials, BH, carved into the wood. She'd been that close. Brad checked the locks. Nothing was touched. The glove box was unopened. Just that bracelet swaying in the wind, like a peace offering or a warning. He didn't wear it, but he didn't throw it away either. He started seeing pieces of her, literally. A feather earring at a rest stop in Santa Fe. A sticker from her quilt on a lamp post in Gallup. It felt intentional, like she was following him, or maybe trying to be found again. Each time he ignored it, until he couldn't, because one night, at a trucker bar outside Flagstaff, a stranger leaned in and said, She wanted me to tell you something. Sarah said you were right, but also wrong. Brad looked up slowly. What else? The man shrugged. Said you don't know her story? Brad lit a cigarette he didn't want and watched the smoke crawl toward the ceiling. He hated how badly he wanted to hear it. Brad drove west, but his mind stayed in Tulsa. He told himself it was over. That she was a thief with a soft face. That she didn't deserve a second thought. But every rest stop felt like a setup. Every glimpse of a sundress in the corner of his eye made him turn, heart racing like an idiot. It all came to a head in Bakersfield. He stopped at a tiny night market for coffee, just off the 99. Half asleep, wallet in hand, he froze when he saw a booth of handmade jewelry, beads, leather, feathers. A girl sat behind it, not Sarah, but close. Same style. Same setup. Brad stepped closer. The vendor looked up. You Brad? His throat tightened. Who's asking? The girl reached under the table and pulled out a worn manila envelope. She said you'd come. Told me to give you this. Then she left. Brad took it, his hands heavier than they should have been. He waited until he was back in his cab to open it. Inside, a folded Polaroid of Sarah as a little girl, sitting with an older woman, both threading beads. A note in the same looping script as the hard drawing. Grandma taught me to survive, not to steal. I forgot the difference. There was no apology, no ask. Just a second bracelet. This one had his mother's name carved into it. He hadn't spoken that name aloud in years. His hand trembled. Something in him cracked. Quietly, Brad didn't drive that night. He just sat in the cab, envelope on his lap, the name Elaine staring up at him from the bracelet like a whisper from home. The Polaroid sat beside it, a grainy window into a past she never mentioned, a life she only hinted at when the night had softened her edges. He remembered her voice then, how she'd said, some people learn to be kind, some learn to pretend. And he wondered which one she thought she was. In the morning, he called Tanya. Got any idea where she went? Tanya sighed. You sure, Brad? Might be a round trip you don't want to make. I just need a name. A direction. Tanya hesitated, then said, there's a shelter she checks into sometimes in Flagstaff. Goes by different names, but the same face. Same eyes. Brad drove straight through Arizona. No music. Just desert and questions. When he got to the shelter, a nurse at the front desk nodded slowly. She left yesterday. Didn't say where. Just left this. Said it was in case he came. Another envelope. Lighter this time. Inside, a matchbook from a Tulsa bar. Same one they met at. On the back, a scribbled time. 1 week. Sunset. No explanation. Just a chance. Brad stared at it, heart clenching like a fist. He should have thrown it away. Should have kept going. But he didn't. Because sometimes, the only way out of the story is through it. Brad rolled into Tulsa 6 days later, his rig humming like it knew the road home. He didn't expect her to be there. Didn't expect anything, really. But at 7:42 p.m., the sun leaking dulled over the rooftop of Lucky's bar, Sarah was already waiting. Same sundress. Same bare feet. Different eyes. They stood apart for a while. Just watching. I thought you might torch the note, she said. I almost did. You came anyway. Brad leaned against the brick wall, arms crossed. You planned it all, didn't you? The charm, the smile, the runaway routine. No, she said quietly. Just the exit. That part, I always plan. They stood in silence. People passed them, music drifted from the bar, but neither moved. Why come back? He asked. Sarah looked away. Because I remembered something my grandma said. that surviving's not the same as living. And you? Her voice cracked. You were kind, Brad. Even after. He didn't speak. Just let the moment press against them. I can't undo it, she said. But I wanted you to know. I was real that night. The tacos, the stories, all of it. I didn't fake that. Brad nodded slowly. You left me a note with a heart on it, Sarah. I know. A small, ashamed smile. And you left me one that stung harder than a slap. She stepped forward, held out the bracelet with the lane carved into it. I don't want you to forgive me. I just want you to have this. Because it mattered. He took it. It mattered. Brad didn't say much after that. He took the bracelet, slipped it into his jacket, and looked at her like a storm he'd finally driven through. Not untouched, not whole, but still standing. You going somewhere? He asked. Sarah glanced down the block where a bus idled, headlights soft in the dusk. East? Maybe Nashville. Maybe nowhere. Brad nodded. Still running. Still breathing, she said. He almost smiled. Do you want me to stay? She asked, voice barely audible. I won't pretend. I could. Brad looked at her for a long time. Every version of her. The girl in the quilt, the thief with the heart note, the child in the photo, all colliding in front of him. You should go, he said gently. Not because I'm angry. Just because you're still finding yourself. And I've already lost too much trying to hold onto things that weren't mine. Sarah blinked hard, then nodded. She turned, walking slow toward the bus. No more drama, no more games. Brad watched her until the doors closed. Then he walked back to his truck, climbed in, started the engine. Before pulling off, he took out the bracelet one last time, ran his fingers over his mother's name, then slipped it on. Not forgiveness, not forgetting, just forward. In the mirror, Tulsa faded behind him. And somewhere in a city he'd never meant to stop in, a girl with too much past and too little future was finally letting go. They both were. A month passed. Brad found himself in Montana, hauling farm equipment through the Bitterroot Valley. The air was clean, the silence honest. For once, the road didn't feel like escape. It felt like something earned. He kept the bracelet on, not as a memory, but as a marker. A line between the man he was and the man he clawed his way back into being. Sometimes he thought of Sarah. Not often. But when he did, it wasn't with anger. More like wondering if she ever stopped long enough to be still. To let someone stay. Then, one morning, he opened his mailbox at a remote truck stop he barely remembered registering with. Inside, a small box. No return address. He opened it cautiously. Inside, a single beaded anklet wrapped around a faded photo of a new booth, same quilt, new name. Sarah Lynn Handmaids. Taped to the bottom of the box was a receipt. No money. Just a message typed neatly on the item sold line. Sold one dream catcher. Didn't I once? You were right. I was pretending. Not anymore. Brad stared at it for a long while, then let the box sit on his dash as he drove. He didn't reach out, didn't try to find her. But sometimes, when the road was quiet and the horizon endless, he smiled just a little. Because even broken people can leave a mark. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they come back and rewrite it.
Road Without Her.